So please, on your slide, page 222, when we try to get basic earnings per share, net income minus preference dividends. So should be careful for preference dividends. You should understand is non-cumulative or cumulative because non-cumulative should be declare, announce the information. So non-cumulated, your company should declare dividends, decide to pay dividends, then you should minus this part. For cumulated, then you don't need to care anything else. When you find out it's cumulated, whether your company pay dividends or not this period, no matter what, you have to minus this part because eventually preferential holders will get the dividends. Okay? So we finish preference dividends. Right now, we want to talk about the second issue is what? Did you find out? For ordinary shares outstanding, here told you weighted average 加权平均. So for this part, weighted average 加权平均, we have to consider the issue to get our shares numbers. Okay, so please go to your your slides on page 226. 226. When we try to get outstanding shares, we consider weighted average. So 加权平均 weighted average means what? What kind of issue we consider? We consider the time. Okay? So what's the time? How long? How long your shares outstanding in the market? How long your shares outstanding in the market? So we consider the time. Okay? So for example, I want to know our company's weighted average outstanding shares. How to compute our weighted average outstanding shares. Okay? So based on the outstanding shares beginning means what? First date, how many shares already in the market? Okay? So based on this, plus or minus our shares changes in the market during this period. But you should note, first date, how many shares we have already this year because of you issue the shares, because of you buy back the shares. So issue the shares, buy back the shares will make your shares changes, right? But when you issue the shares, when you buy back the shares, we should consider the time, okay? So changing shares, consider the time means what? When issue shares, when buy back shares. Okay? So based on first date, how many shares we have, consider when you issue the shares, when you buy back the shares. Then we will get our weighted average number of shares outstanding. So this is how we get weighted average number. 加权平均股数 OK， So for weighted average number, 加权平均股数 also we call it equivalent number, 约当股数 also we call it equivalent number, 约当股数 So the factor is time. When we issue the shares, when we buy back the shares, we consider the time to get our weighted average number of shares outstanding, to get our equivalent number of shares. Okay? Okay. So, equivalent number of shares is the same as actual number of shares. It's not. Why? What's the difference? Actual number of shares is how many shares we really have in the market on our last day. We don't consider the time, okay? But equivalent number of shares, 约当股数 is we consider the time. So there's a difference. So actual number is the actual issues, actual shares we have. Actual number, it means the actual shares we have in the market. Okay, so we don't consider the time, but equivalent number we consider when. Okay, so it's not the same. When we try to compute EPS, we use equivalent. Okay, so we use equivalent number of shares, this number, to compute EPS. Okay, so for example, we use the simple case to let you understand these two numbers are not the same. For example, for this case, first date, your company have 10 shares in the market already. March 1st, your company issue 4 shares because you need the money. So you issue 4 shares. Okay? September 1st, you issue more 5 shares more. So could you tell me what's the actual number of shares you have after the whole year? How many shares actually outstanding in the market? 10 shares, 4 shares more, 5 shares more. So the whole year's totally 19 shares in the market. So that's the actual number of shares. But what's your equivalent shares? Equivalent number of shares. Weighted average number of shares. How many? Consider the time, right? So for your first date, you have 10 shares for how long? 1 year. For your 4 shares, you outstanding in the market for how long? 10 months. For your September 1st, 5 shares outstanding in the market how long? 4 months. So outstanding for 12 months. For your 4 shares outstanding for 10 months. For your 5 shares outstanding for 4 months. Okay, so after consider how long they are in the market, you will get weighted average number only 15 shares. So did you find out they are not the same? 19 shares, 15 shares, they are not the same. So consider the time or not. Okay, any questions? So you should know how to get weighted average numbers. Quite easy. Consider the time. That's it. But why we want to consider the time when we try to compute EPS? When we try to compute the EPS, why we use weighted average number? Why is that? Okay. So the reason we consider the time is you should understand what's the purpose we issue 4 shares. What's the purpose we issue 5 shares? The reason is we need the money, right? So most of the reason we issue 4 shares, we issue 5 shares because we need the money. So 2 major ways to get the money, right? First is borrow money from the bank. You have the liability. Second is issue the shares. Try to get the money from investors, right? So we need the money for what? Maybe you need the money to buy equipment. You need the money to pay employee salaries. You need the money to have a new buildings, right? So that's the reason we issue the shares. But why we need the money to buy the equipment? Of course, we want to make our company produce more product, make the more profit incomes, right? Okay. So issue shares because when we issue shares, make our shares increase because we need the money. We want the money. Okay. So our shares increase for what? Because we want the money. Okay? So shares increase will make you get more cash. Cash is our assets, right? So of course they will make our net asset increase. Why make your net asset increase? You get the cash, maybe you use the cash to buy equipment, right? So maybe you use the cash to buy equipment, okay? Or buildings or others. But no matter what, they will make your net asset increase. But what's the reason? We buy more equipment, we buy more buildings, we buy more equipment, more machines. They will make our produce more products, right? Produce more products. What's our eventually our goal? We want to make more profits. Okay, so eventually our purpose is to make more profit. Okay, make more profits, make our net income increase. Our net income increase means try to make our EPS increase, right? So also means make our EPS increase. So did you find out the relationship? We issue the shares. Eventually, our goal is to make our EPS increase. Okay? But why we consider the time? You know, when you get the money, you will affect the EPS profit only on that moment, right? So, for example, for your 4 shares on March 1st, you issue 4 shares on March 1st. So, when you got the cash on March 1st, right? So, when you got the cash on March 1st, the cash will affect your company's performance for how long? Only after March 1st, right? So you will find out for your 4 shares, you got the cash for their 4 shares when? On March 1st. So only you got the cash. You could do something for your future, right? Will you affect your past? Impossible, right? Okay. So your cash you got will affect your company performance only for the future, right? So how long? 10 months. So did you find out this is the reason why we consider the time? Because the money you got will affect only in the future. So on March 1st, you got the cash will affect only future 10 months. Impossible, you will affect the past period, right? Okay. So we consider the time because the money you got will affect only the 10 months in the future. The same reason for your September 1st. September 1st, you got the cash on September 1st. So the cash you got will affect only for the future, only 4 months. Okay? So will affect only 4 months. Okay, so there's a reason why when we try to compute EPS, we consider the time. Okay, any questions? No problem. If you don't have any questions, so based on the logic, we try to get actual number of shares. We try to get weighted average number of shares. Okay, so please look at the case on slide 233. 233. Okay, so this is the case. Did you find out beginning balance? So on the first day, we have outstanding shares, 90,000 shares. April 1st, issue 30,000 shares more for cash. So April 1st will make our shares increase, okay? Increase 30,000 shares. July 1st, what happened? You buy back the shares, right? Buy back the shares from the market. So which will make our outstanding shares decrease 39,000 shares, right? November 1st, we issue 6,000 shares more. So which will make our shares increase 6,000 shares. Okay, so based on this, go to your note on page 49. Could you find out what is your actual number of shares? What is your weighted average number of shares? So go to your notes on page 49. Page 49. Could you tell me your actual number of shares? How many? Your equivalent number of shares, your weighted average number of shares. How many? Okay, are you done? For each number of shares, quite easy, right? So first day, I have 90,000 outstanding shares. April 1st, I issue 30,000 shares, so which made my shares increase 30,000 shares. July 1st, I buy back the shares, which made my shares decrease 39,000 shares. November 1st, my shares increased 60,000 shares. So you just add up all the numbers, then you will find out your actual number of shares is 141,000 shares, right? Okay, no problem. But when we want to compute EPS, we want to know each shares, how they affect our EPS, right? So we have to consider the time. So based on this, we have two ways, depends on you. So which method you prefer? First method is what? Based on each time your shares changes, okay? So I look at the first $90,000 shares. How long outstanding in the market? So I look at each change separately. So for the first 90,000 shares outstanding 1 year from January 1st to December 31st. Okay? And look at the second change. My shares increase 30,000 shares. So based on second 30,000 shares, your shares outstanding for how long? From April 1st to December 31st. 9 months. Okay? How about your third one? You buy back the shares, right? So which made your shares decrease minus 30,000 shares. Consider the time. How long outstanding? How long in the market? From July 1st to December 31st. How about your last one? 6,000 shares. For how long? November 1st to December 31st. So this is how we find out our weighted average number. Okay? So you can use this weight. Or you can use another way is what? Total concept. Total concept means you add up all the shares together. So from the first one, you have only 90,000 shares, right? But for how long? From January 1st to April 1st. Because April 1st, the total number changed, right? So from your April 1st, beginning, you have 90,000 shares. April 1st, I have 30,000 shares more, okay? So totally, I have 120,000 shares in the market for how long? April 1st to July 1st. Because July 1st, the total number changed again, right? Okay. So the total number changed to 81,000 shares. So is what? April 1st, 12,000 shares, right? July 1st, decrease 39,000. Okay? But total number 81,000 in the market for how long? July 1st to November 1st, because the total number changed again to how many? 141,000 is based on 81,000 shares. November 1st increase 80,000 shares more. For how long? For 2 months only. Either way, depends on you. Okay? For your textbook, for your solutions, maybe they use the method 1. But for me personally, I like method, for your textbook, for your solutions, I think they use method 2. But for me personally, I like method 1. So I tell you 2 methods. So you could use your way. Okay? Depends on you. But no matter which way you use, result the same. So weighted average number is 103,000 shares. Any questions? No problem? Okay. So based on this logic, what if, you know, issue shares, buy back shares, you got the cash, you pay the cash, right? But still, we have other reasons will make your shares increase, decrease. What are the other reasons? Share dividends, share split on your slide 237. So here we talk about other reasons still will make your shares changes. First is share dividends. Second is share split. Remember, what is share dividends? Share dividends, we give the shares to shareholders. Will you get any cash back? No, right? So, share dividends give shares to shareholders. Okay? As dividends. How about share split? Share split, 股票分割, what does it mean? We cut one share into 2 shares, right? We cut one share into 3 shares. So we make one share become 2 or more shares. Okay. So share dividends is we give the dividends to shareholders. Okay. So they share dividends. So share split. What's the purpose for share split? We make one share become two or more shares. What's the reason? Sorry? Yeah, to make the share price cheaper. Because when some company like a TMAC, 台积电, share price too high, not many investors could buy the shares. So they want to make the share price decrease. Then they maybe use this way. Okay, share split. Share split to make share price lower. Okay, to increase marketability 流通性。Okay, marketability 流通性 means what? Investors could afford to buy the share. So share dividend, share split. Still, there's another two reasons will make your company shares changes. Okay, but could you tell me, for these two share dividend, share split, will your company get the cash? No, it's not right. Share dividends, you just give the shares to shareholders. Will you get the cash? Of course not. Share split, you just make shares. One become two or three. Just cut it into too many shares. That's it. So will you get the cash? Of course not. Okay? So for these two cases, you will not get any cash. So no cash. For these two, no cash effect. No cash effect, okay? No cash effect means what? Will not affect EPS. Okay? So based on this, how could we compute a weighted average number of shares? Okay? Based on these situations, when we try to compute our weighted average numbers, you should assume share dividend, share split happened at the beginning. Okay, so we should restate our shares. Assume they happened at the beginning. Okay, so for share dividend, share split, we should restate the shares. 追溯调整 assume they happened at the beginning. Okay. For share dividends, for share split, because both of them no cash effect, they won't affect our EPS. But you should understand, first is no cash effect. So they don't affect EPS. Second effect, But share dividends, we give the shares to shareholders. Share split, we make one share become more shares, right? So they will make our shares increase. Okay? So still they will make your shares increase, but no cash effect. So this situation is different from the previous case. Previous case, we got the cash. But this case, you don't have the cash, but still they will make your shares increase. Okay? So because of this, how we compute our weighted average numbers, you should pretend they happen at the beginning. So you should restate the shares. So how? For example, you have a share dividends 50%. So means what? You give 50% more shares to shareholders. Happen on June 1st. So we should restate, pretend they happen at the beginning. So all those shares before increase 50%. Okay? So for your January 1st, at the beginning, 100,000 shares, pretend it happened at the beginning. So your shares will become 150,000 shares. For your March 1st, you issue 20,000 shares, but we restate, pretend share dividend happened at the beginning. So they will make our shares increase 50% to 30,000 shares. Okay? So means you should times 1.5 times 1.5. Okay? So we pretend we have share dividends at the beginning. So how about after? After, just go back to its normal situation. So November 1st, still 30,000 shares. Okay? So based on this, consider your time. So first step, restate, 追溯调整. After restate, then consider the time effect. Okay? So after restate, pretend share dividend happened at the beginning. Then we consider time effect. So what's our weighted average number of shares? Then you consider the time, okay? So that's a share dividend. How about share split? Still the same. So share split, if I assumed I have a share split on July 1st, okay? Then we restate, pretend they happen at the beginning. So 3 for 1 means what? One share become 3 shares, right? Okay? 3 for 1, one share become 3 shares. So your first date, your shares you have 3 times. Your second, May 1st, your shares become 3 times. Okay? So this is how we got our shares for each one. Then how about December 31st is after share split. So it is just the same as what the number you should have, right? Okay. So after this, then what's the step 2? Consider your time. Okay. Any questions? If you don't have any questions, please finish page. Your note 51. Your note 51. Note 51. Find out your actual number of shares. Find out your weighted average number of shares. Your note 51. Okay, are you done? So for actual number of shares, you just add up all the numbers, right? So first day, 100,000 shares. March 1st, issued 2,000 shares more, right? But you should understand, on June 1st, you issue 50% share dividend, right? So what does it mean, 50%? What does it mean, 50% share dividends? Based on all shares we have, right? So all shares we have is 100,000 and 2,000 shares, 20,000 shares. Based on the all shares we have, then we give 50% share dividends more. Okay? So which will make our shares increase 60,000 shares. This is your share dividends. Okay? So based on the shares we have, for our shareholders. Each one will give them 50% shares dividends more. So which will make your shares increase 60,000 shares. Okay? So how many shares totally we have? 100,000, 20,000, 60,000, 30,000. So this is total actual number of shares we have. Okay? Then how about weighted average shares? First is restated, right? So pretend share dividend happened at the beginning. So step one, based on the shares we have restated 50%. So I find out each one we should have 150,000 shares based on 50% more. Second is 30,000 shares based on restated 50% more. And November 1st, just the same 30,000 shares. Okay? Then based on this, step one, restated. What's the next? Consider the time, right? So consider the time. You could use change concept or total concept, depends on you. Okay, so change concept. First one, we have 150,000 shares. Second, we have 30,000 shares. Last one, we have 30,000 shares. If you base on change concept, if you want to use total concept, so first day 150,000 shares. Second one is what? 150,000 shares. We increase 30,000 shares more. Okay? And last one is based on the total shares we have before 180,000 shares. Right now we increase 30,000 shares more. Okay? Any questions? No problem? If no problem, then this for today. Any questions, please come to ask.